Hello everyone, this is Carlos from the Color Computer Store, and working on some CoCos tonight, and I thought I would shoot a quick little video to show you what I'm working on. So I'm working on fixing a bunch of keyboards, and so before I get into that, I just want to kind of run through the different type of Color Computer keyboards that you'll run into out there. So this is the Color Computer 3 keyboard with the extra function keys there, and that's using a Mylar type of cable. And going backwards in time, here's a Color Computer 2 full travel keyboard, also using a Mylar cable. As you can see, some of this silver paint there, that's conductive paint that we use to try to get these to still function okay. The next step backwards in time is what we call the melted keyboard, and this one is in really bad shape. Basically using it as a donor for other keyboards. This also uses a Mylar cable in the background as well. We call it the melted keyboard because, as you can see, it doesn't look like a full travel type of keyboard. And then going further back in time, we have one of my least favorite keyboards, in fact, most hated keyboard that was ever on a CoCo. This is also kind of a melted keyboard. As you can see, the keys are the same style, but the switches on the back are completely different. And what makes this keyboard so horrendous is that it's really unrepairable. So if you have problems with this keyboard, because the backs of the keyboards are basically melted into a plate that's back here, it becomes basically garbage. Whereas most of the other CoCo keyboards, you can fix them to some extent with conductive paint like this. Ideally, we're going to see products from Cloud9 come out that will help us to more easily replace keyboards in the future. So now we go back to the furthest back in time is the CoCo 1 keyboard. And actually there's two designs for these keyboards. One type of design, which you see here, is also using the Mylar cable. So that means that these keyboards are usable in other CoCos because they're using the same type of Mylar flat flex cable. Unfortunately, this one has seen some better days, and it's gotten to a point where it's just not fixable. Unfortunately, it's difficult to find or produce these Mylar cables. There are people who produce them for the Timex ZX81, but we haven't seen that yet in the CoCo world. And so, because it's this Mylar cable, it goes into this flat ribbon socket here. Now, unfortunately, this is not going to work for me, but I do have a bunch of other type of CoCo 1 keyboards. So on the front side, they look exactly the same, right? The same type of keys, but actually the original CoCo keyboards actually used a different type of plug. And so what you'll find is on the motherboard, you'll have these pins, these 16 pins, and they will plug into, here will be the motherboard, and that will plug into this connector here, like so. So the good news is I've got plenty of these type of keyboards rather, but here's the problem, right? We have this Mylar connector on the keyboard, on the motherboard. So I've purchased some of these pin connectors, 16 pin connectors. So I'm going to desolder this connector off the motherboard and place this one on the motherboard. The other thing that I'm doing is that some of these small little ribbon cables have deteriorated, and so they're not working properly. So I could buy very short ones like this. They're not very easy to find. In fact, I think I've only come across them once in a while. I'm sure someone's going to say in the comments that there's a ton of them out there, but what I did instead was to buy these type of cables. And so what I was just trying to do a moment ago was to dry fit this new keyboard connector onto this CoCo. Unfortunately, I'm using my hand to hold the phone, but let's see if we can do this. One of the problems I ran into is that there's a post here for the keyboard. So that's not a problem with this design here, because a post ends up being around here. But by using a longer cable, I was hitting the post every time when I went to put in the keyboard, so that didn't work. So the MacGyver way to go about fixing it is just simply open it up in the middle, and now that can go in there nice. And then once we have this here, that's going to connect like so. So this CoCo 1 will be soon back on its feet and ready to be sold to a new loving home, and we'll make a new happy CoCo user out of someone. So that's it. That's kind of a quick introduction to some of the CoCo keyboards out there. I'm sure I'm forgetting a bunch of other information, but hopefully that will give you some background on this. I could have went into some of the switches and what's how the actual key presses are made, but that's for another video. So thanks a lot. Again, this is Carlos from the Color Computer Store. Have a great night.